All right, the recording has started. Hello and welcome to our summer orientation series for families, which includes sessions on Wednesday at noon throughout the summer. And there are recordings that are available on the orientation website for your convenience. Our summer series touches on a number of topics, which we hope will help as you transition your student to Dickinson and help your student thrive throughout their transition to Dickinson. The Q&A option is available for this webinar, so please do not hesitate to ask any questions. We will have time at the end to make sure all of those questions are answered. So let me introduce our topic and presenter. The title of today's session is The Inside Scoop on Course Selection and New Student Advising with Tara Fischer, who is the Associate Provost and Dean for Student Success and Academic Advising. Tara, take it away.
Thanks so much, Lauren. Hi, everybody, and welcome. I have the distinct pleasure of leading Dickinson Student Success and Advising team, and it's our great pleasure today to have the opportunity to talk with you about course request and new student advising. I'm also joined today by my colleagues Caitlin Kopis and Eric Sutherland, who are helping to build a seamless and we hope even really fun experience for your student. So some of the most meaningful work that we get to do at Dickinson is with incoming students. That mix of excitement and in some cases a little bit of hesitation or even feeling terrified that your student is facing or might be facing soon is exactly the motivation that we had for the model of academic and career advising and student support that we have at Dickinson. So members of our new student advising team can attest to the fact that the energy of working with your student and with you as a partner and support is why we do what we do. My job and the job of our new student advising team is to help make this transition as seamless as possible, or at least less seam-filled as possible, and to help your student begin to really build a lot of confidence about what is possible for them in college. College can seem really complicated. Career decision-making can seem complicated, but at Dickinson, we make those two processes, which sometimes could feel a little overwhelming, and we take them and break them into small, doable steps that are rooted in a social process of connection. Talk a little bit more about what we do in terms of that in just a few minutes, but whether your student's first generation to college, or you have had the opportunity to shepherd numerous students through the college transition process, there are typically a lot of questions that incoming parents have and some action items that will help you and your Dickinsonian navigate this process as smoothly as possible. So that's what we're going to tackle. Our goal today is really to introduce you to those systems and structures and specifics that will be part of your student's academic journey at Dickinson. I also want to really make sure there are some concrete things that you as parents or guardians or family members, loved ones, can do to help support them in this process. So at Dickinson, we're really committed to ensuring that all of our students have access to what they need to thrive personally, academically, and professionally. And to make that possible from the very start, we have a really integrated approach to academic and career development. Our overall mission is to help your student define and pursue their authentic interests inside and outside of the classroom, on campus and in the wider world, and before, during, and after they graduate. We want to help your student identify, confirm, and then pursue what we call their authentic interests, which we think is that sweet spot right there in the middle of where personality, skills, values, and priorities intersect. I don't know about you, but as a aspiring young professional, there were times when maybe there were at least two of those things that were at odds with each other. Maybe my priorities and my values were at odds. And so what we're trying to do in this development process with your student is to help them be confident in that time when there are those rubs, and to really be able to navigate that smoothly. So our mission might sound simple, right? Help students identify, confirm, and pursue those authentic interests. But beneath the surface, there are really a lot of complex issues. Not least, what's the relationship between a Dickinson education in the liberal arts and sciences and a student's future career and life? From decades of experience, we know that the program of study does not necessarily determine future career options. Students, Dickinson grads can and do launch into pretty much anything from pretty much any major. But that said, we take academic decision-making extremely seriously, including from a career perspective. So instead of telling your students what they can do with a particular major, we're going to ask questions. We'll ask questions about what topics spark their curiosity, what kinds of problem-solving strategies they find most satisfying, what kinds of evidence they find most compelling. This process is going to begin really concretely during the new student advising process, which will take place for your students between July 14th and 24th, so right around the corner. Students will have an in-depth, highly customized conversation about at least their current hopes, dreams, and aspirations with the member of our new student advising team. No matter where your student may be in their academic decision-making, I really, really want to affirm that they're in just the right place at this time. Our advisors will be asking questions, lots of questions, to help them begin to answer what we feel are the most foundational questions for them at this point when starting out a new college experience. What do you want to learn and why? What do you think you want to study after you graduate and why? And how do those questions relate to each other and why? At the core is also what's fun for them and why. Again, this is a really, really huge moment for your student, and we want to make sure that we're capitalizing on the energy and the momentum that they have in order to shape their future. Just as we help transition students in each year, we also have a team of folks in integrated academic student success that are helping students launch. And so there are incredibly rich conversations that are happening between those two milestone events, and the team's deep knowledge of academic programs, the campus, and the wider world will enable us to help guide your students to opportunities that will enrich their experience now and prepare them for whatever lies ahead. We may be suggesting co-curricular opportunities to your students, or discussing even some long-term pre-professional types of things, or making connects to folks who can really help get them on the right path very early on. And so these conversations will be dynamic, they will be customized, and they will really be helping to take your student from where they are and launch them forward in this transition. As you know, the world is getting more and more complex by the day, and the pace of change appears to only be accelerating. So people are estimating right now, specialists are estimating right now, that your student will have probably at least 12 different career, not job, changes during the course of their lifetime. So our job is to help build them into confident decision makers that are able to enlist the resources and the people that they need as they survey options and move forward with confidence. So through a robust slate of individual and group programming, systeming, and communication, we will equip your students with tools and skills they need for focused exploration and ever-increasing confidence in their decision-making. One of the ways that we do this is through very clear step-by-step paths that help students understand what is expected of them next and how they could continue to reach higher and begin to explore opportunities that they might not even know have existed. We really want to make sure that we are breaking both advising and career development into clear and manageable goals. So academic and career development isn't always as complex as physics or metaphysics, but it is complicated enough that it can be hard to know where to start. Our approach to academic and career development is really to support your student through that and to help them begin to be more and more confident resource tappers, if that's a way of describing it. As a bit of foundation, there's some very systems and supports that are put in place at Dickinson. Our academic advisors will help your student navigate the Dickinson curriculum and explore areas academically. They also are members of the faculty who work closely with students during their time at Dickinson. The academic advisor's role is to help students understand and navigate Dickinson's rich curriculum in the liberal arts and sciences, and to begin to really help make connections and dive deeply into those authentic interests that we all talked about before. As a side note, each incoming student will be working with members of our Center for Career Development team, starting during orientation. They will help your student feel confident about the exploration of career interests throughout their time at Dickinson. I won't go into much more about that, but if anybody's interested, we can certainly talk a little bit more about some of the pathway advisor opportunities that they have that's connected more to career development. But this goes hand in hand. We know that those decisions are absolutely locked together in many, many cases. In addition to other areas of support on campus, the care team really work as a way to support students of concern. That's a small core group of students who will work with, a small core group of faculty and staff who work with students and support them when they're encountering challenges really of any sort. There are also many other resources on campus that provide academic support as well. I've listed a few on this screen. They are absolutely there to help your student along the way. So let's talk big picture and get into more concrete things as we go here. So from a big picture standpoint, at Dickinson, there are a total of 32 credits that a student needs for graduation. One class equals 1 credit. It's a little bit different than many institutions, but we like to try to keep it pretty simple there. So that's an average of 4 courses per semester for each of 8 semesters. There are some students who will choose later on in their time at Dickinson, not their first semester, to overload, to take 5 courses or to take, say, 4.5 courses. But really the expectation of an on-time graduation in 8 semesters is 4 classes per semester. So of those 32 credits that are needed for graduation, really the mix of courses is divided approximately into thirds. So about a third of them are general distribution requirements in the liberal arts and sciences. About a third are requirements for the major or areas of study that a student might have. And then the additional third are electives. And so what we end up seeing oftentimes is that gives students flexibility to really dive deeply into things across the liberal arts they're fascinated in, or maybe to consider picking up a minor or an area of certification through one of our certificate programs. And so there's a lot of flexibility in that mix of 32. And I can answer any questions that you all might have later about that. But first fall 25 semester, your student will have 4 courses. Most students will have 4 courses. And of those 4, one is their first year seminar. If you have spoken with your student and you know that they have not yet selected a first year seminar, please have them check their Dickinson email and get on that. We have all but a tiny handful of students who have selected their first year seminar, and I'm thrilled to say that over 90% of our students actually got their first choice, their first of their top 6. And so we're really, really excited for your students to be able to dive in and learn so much more about the transition from college, from high school to college level reading and writing and research in that class. The topics are really random and interesting, and I hope if you haven't yet had the opportunity to talk with your student about what they're taking, they already have that information that was posted last week, and they can find that information in their SSB self-service banner, as well as in Navigate. So fall 2025 semester, one of those 4 courses will be their first year seminar. Typically, 1 or 2 of those courses are in areas that a student is generally interested in exploring, and then oftentimes we encourage students to begin to think about beginning their language that first semester at Dickinson, because so many students are interested in things like study abroad and full immersion programs, and many of our majors require a large number of courses even beyond the intermediate level. And so we do encourage you to think about whether or not beginning a language this semester works and is strategic for your student. It oftentimes can open up some really great doors later on for a student. Again, can answer any questions about that later. So how is this actually going to work? All right, taking 4 classes this semester. What's this look like? As I mentioned before, during new student advising, which is July 14th to 21st, your student will be meeting with a member of our new student advising team. All of our students received messages last week that were individualized for a appointment, and all of your students all have the opportunity to choose from available options. They are all very unique because in many cases it is a specific faculty member who's working with this first year seminar and advising this first year seminar, who's going to be doing the advising during new student advising. And so it's really key your student checks their email and follows through with getting an appointment. Those are rolling in now, so we're excited about that. And there's also a lot of really great information in that email about helping them prepare for their advising session and course request. The new student advising web pages outline the process in 4 steps, and we provide a checklist so students can feel even more confident that they're ready to maximize the new student advising experience. After they complete that, they will then move into the next portion of this process, which is called course request. You will note it is not called course registration, it is called course request. The way that Dickinson does course request is that we take all of the students' requests and then we, in very close consultation with our registrar's office and with faculty, maximize the options that students have based on what the demand is for specific courses. And so during course request, your student will not be able to make any changes to the classes that they have requested, but then when schedule adjustment opens up on August 13th, they'll see exactly the classes that they got. And at that point, they can make any live changes to courses that they have for the fall. Oftentimes, course request is a time of a whole lot of excitement, right? They're thrilled to be able to put in their top options. Our new student advisors ask them to think about maybe 5 or 6 courses total that they'd be interested in, even though they're only requesting 4, so that they can confidently jump into schedule adjustment, excuse me, when that happens, with a few classes that they've already gotten excited about in their back pocket. Schedule adjustment will run all the way up until the start of the semester. So lots of time to make tweaks to the schedule, potentially change complete directions. In some cases, students will have conversations with someone else at the college or maybe with you at the college and decide to add or drop something. And so lots of good time to add and drop before they start. They also, during schedule adjustment, as soon as they've got their schedules set, can start to purchase books. There will be information that comes out in the Read Things messages, as well as other orientation information that helps students see how to purchase books and exactly the classes that they need to be purchasing books for, or other online resources. So that's when it's really going to gear up and get really real. And then during the whole first week of classes, students can add or drop. So if a student were to go to a class and see that it, for whatever reason, is not the right fit for them, they are able to make that change during that first week as well. So a lot of information there, but wanted to just kind of give you a little bit of a sense of what's ahead for them. So what do these advising sessions actually really look like? Typically, students will find themselves in one of 3 kind of overall groups, and it's completely normal to be in any of these groups, and we really want to affirm that. So oftentimes they will be either in the I want to spend my semester exploring my interests as widely as possible group, or the I'm considering 2 to 4 specific fields of study, or the I already know exactly what I want to study group. And the information that we have provided to students and that we have online helps your student, no matter which one of those groups that they're in, begin to confidently think through the process for course request and their new student advising conversation. And so it literally walks them through step by step the things that, depending on what group they're in, they should be thinking about or exploring. Our faculty will work with students. Advising is teaching, and our advising and staff are teaching students the logic of our liberal arts curriculum, as well as the logic of the curriculum within these specific areas of studies that your students are exploring, and really how to leverage those experiences that they have and will have. This is a very social process with you, with their advisor, and with other students. But in many cases, this is for our students where it really, really does begin to seem seem real that in just a few weeks they'll be heading off to college. So these conversations are fun, they're energetic, and on both the advisor and the advisee side, oftentimes really lead to some good thought-provoking things that are really tuned in to later, oftentimes referred back to later. So lots of fun ahead with that. And now I'd like to just really outline a couple of specific concrete steps that you as parents or support people for our students can help them navigate in terms of what's ahead for them. So if I were to give you just some concrete things, we ask that all of your students please be encouraged to use the system called Navigate that Dickinson has. All of their to-dos, their journey has been set up in Navigate. It has step-by-step things in terms of what they needed to accomplish, not just for new student advising, but for the entirety of the orientation and onboarding process. It will help them stay on top of to-do items for their transition to college. So everything both on the academic side and the student life side, from forms to quick polls about areas of interest, so that we can get your student connected to groups and resources right away. All of that is found in Navigate. It's a tool that the college has invested in that really helps us integrate all pieces of the onboarding and student experience. And it's really a one-stop shop for your student over the course of their time at Dickinson. Also, as parents, would really like to encourage you to, or parents and support folks, I would say, please encourage them to start using their Dickinson email and to respond to messages and calls to action. This is really, really important, especially as your students are beginning to have things that are more urgent in nature in terms of course schedule, requests and new student advising and all different kinds of forms that are due. And so please encourage them to really be proactive on that. Specifically in the case of what we're here for today, please encourage them to sign up for a new student advising session. Again, if they haven't done that yet, there's an email sitting in their inbox. So please encourage them to follow through with that. We can't wait to talk with them in just a couple weeks. Third thing, concretely, would love to encourage you to please do is please have them spend some time preparing for their advising session. This is a step-by-step process that we've outlined, but it's far deeper than choosing courses. Asking questions like, what do you want to learn and why, and where and how do you want to use that knowledge, oftentimes leads students on different paths than just thinking very linearly. And so really want to make sure that they are taking full advantage of the resources that we have in order to prepare for these conversations and to make the most out of them. In addition, please encourage them to ask questions when they have questions. Having a straightforward discussion with them about the role that you will play in their lives and in their academic decision-making is probably also wise. I have a student who's going off to college this fall as well, and I am really in many ways thinking of this as the foundation for my relationship with my child or my loved one as an adult. And things are going to shift a lot from high school to college. And so beginning to have that conversation now is really key, especially when it comes to academic decision-making and understanding when and how a student will communicate any kind of challenges they might be facing or wins they might be experiencing with you during the course of their time at Dickinson. For many of our parents, I'm going to stop sharing screen now because it's just more of a talking bang here. But for many of our parents, the transition to college is most challenging in things like there is not a way for you to see every single day exactly what a student has due and how they're doing in each specific class. That's not how the college experience is set up. And so that can be a pretty big shift. You know, I knew if my son wasn't on exactly doing all the things he was supposed to be doing, and that's just not the case in college. And so it can be a pretty big shift. Oftentimes students also will need a couple of weeks to kind of get in the groove because college doesn't have everyday work that is inputted for a grade. Sometimes it will be several weeks before a student even knows really how they're doing in a specific class or even has an assignment that they're asked about. So it's just a pretty big shift. something that you and they will have to get used to. But we've got your back the whole way. I do want to talk just for a moment about FERPA. FERPA is something that is really important. Again, as you and your student decide how much you want and how much they want to be involved in the academic decision-making that they have in their educational experience in college. FERPA is a federal regulation that Dickinson has to really respect the educational record of a student. And so once your student matriculates to Dickinson, so once they are here in the fall, we as an institution are not able to share information with you without a student being supportive of that. So I would really encourage you, as a part of your conversation with your student about what role you'll play in their academic experience and journey, have an outright conversation about that. In some cases, it makes sense for a parent to have FERPA permissions, and in other cases, it does not, but that's something that you and your student will need to navigate. The best case scenario is when you, the student, and we as an institution can all have information that is shared and support your student all the way through. And there are lots of different ways of doing that. FERPA is just one of those. Okay, at this point, the only other thing I really wanted to kind of drive home in terms of concrete things is I would encourage you to help your student think about preferences and or accommodations and or style and how that might impact things like courses. If you know that your student really struggles to get up every single morning, even in high school, you had to, dump a bucket of water on them to get up. They may not want to sign up for a 5-day-a-week, 8:30 course. However, it may be a time for them to push themselves and to challenge themselves to kind of rise to that occasion. So just encourage them to think really realistically about any accommodations they might have, any preferences and any styles that will really set them up for the best success that they possibly could have this semester. It's really important to come out strong, right? And that first semester can oftentimes be challenging just because it's such a different experience. So choosing courses that help our students feel most confident and that fit personality, skills, values, and priorities is really important, even from the get-go. So I'm just going to kind of stop there. That was a lot of talking there on my part. I hope that there was something there that is at least moderately helpful. Do we have any questions? Lauren, anything I missed that you'd like for me to talk a little bit more about, or any questions you'd like for us to tackle?
Thank you so much, Tara. You're right. That was a lot of really good information. Some of it was a good refresh for me. I haven't heard it in a while. We do have a question here from a parent. So Alessandra is asking, if my student is interested in the pre-health field, do they need to consider a math and lab science in the first semester? Where can we find information on considerations of this sort? So I think that goes back to the summer advising sessions that you were talking about.
Absolutely. Great question. Thank you so much for that. I know it's probably on the minds of many of you. We typically see between about 15 and 20% of our students of our incoming class indicate an interest in pre-health as a whole. And so what we want to do, whether it's pre-health, whether it's pre-law, whether it's really any areas, what we want to do in the new student advising conversation is help your student keep as many options on the table for themselves as possible for as long as they want. Until they make decisions. And so if your student is even moderately interested in going in that direction from a pre-health standpoint, it would be wise, it actually would be pretty much imperative that your student consider taking 2 labs this fall. Chemistry is really, really key. And so the chemistry course that is offered at Dickinson does have a math component to it. So from a placement test level, you need to make sure that your student has taken placement tests for both math and chemistry in order for them to be able to jump into a chemistry course. So yeah, for pre-health, really, we're looking at a lab science, probably a biology or something like that, a chemistry, first year seminar, and then potentially a math if they need that based on their placement exam scores, or just another course, whether it be a language or something more in the exploratory area. But that's really, really key. Thank you for that question. In terms of finding more specifics about that, I'm going to ask Caitlin, if you're on there, could you please drop if you have the ability, could you please drop information specifically about the pre-health program and our website there into the chat?
Great, thank you. We do have another question here. Our pre-law courses are available. Is it possible to take even as a first-year undecided student?
So the pre-law program is very different than pre-health in that there are less specific courses that must be taken in order to be a really competitive applicant. And so what we would recommend typically from a pre-law perspective is that you think about taking maybe something like a political science course, an introductory political science course. American government, if you had not taken that in high school, is really key. There are many other both 100 and 200 level courses in political science and international studies, and even some in law and policy that can be exceptionally helpful for you from an exploratory standpoint. And then for any really of our pre-professional programs, I also want to reiterate the career pathways model that our Center for Career Development has is incredibly dynamic. And so what I would encourage you to do is if you're thinking pre-health or if you're thinking pre-law or really anything pre-professional, pre-engineering, working with the folks with our Center for Career Development, our pathways advisors, early and often is going to be really, really key and open up possibilities for you to start to explore and either keep things on the table or decide, nope, that was not for me, but I'm glad I tried it. So great question.
Yes, great. We know that there's quite a rise in pre-professional program interest. So there are some links that we put into the chat there for both pre-health and pre-law to hopefully direct you to some additional information and resources.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Tara? Great. All right. Anything else you want to add to wrap things up, Tara?
We can't wait to work with your students. Thank you so much for taking the time and the interest in supporting them in this way. And we look forward to partnering with you along the way. Thanks so much. Welcome to Dickinson.